Welcome to another episode. I am Dagny,
I am Damali.
and in this episode, we're going to talk about neurodivergence. Before we jump in, let's give you a little snippet of what exactly we're going over so you know what you're getting yourself into before you start listening, right? So we want to go over one, what is neurodivergence? And then two, we wanted to discuss and share how we individually came across it, and while we were diving more and more into it, realized that we both actually resonate with it and are both on the spectrum in different degrees. And also then in that want to discuss how neurodivergence is portrayed in film and what aspects of social life, education, work, and things like that are there pros and there's a lot of pros and some cons we can improve on when it comes to people who are neurodivergent.
Yeah, it's basically just differing mental functions than the neurotypical person. Neurotypical is someone who would not be like neurodivergent. And for example, people on the spectrum of like autism would be considered neurodivergent, and basically it just means our minds work differently, and we see the world in a I guess we experience the world in a different way than well, you could say everyone else. Um, that's the basic definition
Cool,
of
cool.
it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then we have different, and even the way we perceive the world, the way our emotions come out, or the way we react to things are different from other
Mhm.
people. So that's like the main definition of
All
it.
right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
and
next,
I guess we wanted to talk about this because we thought it would be like an interesting. Okay, no, yeah.
no, go ahead,
Go
continue.
ahead. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say we thought it would be interesting to go over this because, like, obviously for neurodivergent people, there's like there's three different types, right? There's the ones that where it's you know that they're neurodivergent, it's obvious, like you can tell, or from certain I guess movements of the way they act, you can tell that they are, neurodivergent, and the people that you don't know at all. And then there are people that they don't even know that they're neurodivergent because they've never been diagnosed. So
Mm,
yeah, that's kind of
right,
the
right.
also that definition of it. So yeah.
Okay. Then now let's get into how neurodivergent is a part of our lives. So would you like to share first in terms of how did you first come across the term or the label or even what it is? And when did you
Mm.
realize that, oh, this is possibly part of my life, or possibly I am a part of this group of X-Men mutants?
Yes. Yes, we are X-Men mutants. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. The neurodivergent word was kind of a recent word.
mhm,
Like I don't know if last year or a few years ago. I learned like what it was. So clearly, I didn't know I was neurodivergent, right? But I did know that yes, in school, I did have certain I guess like learning challenges that connect with neurodivergence, I think. Because for most of my school life, I remember always learning things differently, having to have extra help because I took in information in a different way. And as I've gotten older, now that I'm more used to my challenges and things like that, I'm able to, because I know there's certain challenges I have, I like deal with them in various ways. Um, and then certain things that I um, need that help me, kind of thing. Like, for example, I sometimes can be forgetful about certain things I have to do. And so to deal with that, I make sure to write lists of things I have to do, or I always have my handy like alarms to remind myself, oh, Damali, you have to do this, or, things like that,
mhm,
because
mhm,
sometimes I can be a bit scattered with information.
mhm.
In school, math was like my enemy, and like I hated it and I wanted to kill it. I realized now it was very important but math was just something that in elementary school I kind of it wasn't caught early enough, and then when they finally did catch it, it was just, you know, it like it didn't fully. I didn't become a math whiz kind of thing, and because of that, it's always been like a struggle for me to deal with any math class was just not fun for me. And like for example, when I was in elementary school, I had a teacher that was like, she can't understand the numbers, but she knows, but I was really good at reading. I was actually reading, like, my reading was awesome, my reading level, but my math, not so much. And so I had a teacher in particular that was like, oh, well, maybe we can write out the numbers, like write them using words, and maybe that'll be easier for her. So that's just an example of how, like, if a teacher knows how to, like, I guess, adjust themselves to your student's type of learning, that is like awesome. And sometimes I would have teachers that knew how to do that, and sometimes I had teachers that didn't, kind of thing. And yeah, and so certain things like even today, one thing when I have to pay for things, I mean, we have credit cards, so it's easier. But if I have to pay a certain amount of something, I'll give like more because I don't want to, because things like figuring out change and counting the change, that I guess it's like I guess that reminds me of my younger days of freaking out over math. So like that's one way I deal with it. I'm like, it's like, this will be 11:26 or something, or like this will be 11:47, and I will give them $20.
Right. Yeah.
Like so then they can give me the change, and then later I'll just like count it. That's how. Because as opposed to me counting and then freaking out, being like, also sometimes I mix up numbers. So when I have to like copy down like an address or a license or something, I have to really take my time to write the numbers down, because sometimes 52 can look like 25, like things like that.
Right.
So, and I guess it's a term of like, it's funny, everyone thought that I had like dyslexia, but it wasn't dyslexia. It was actually dyscalculia, for like mixing up numbers. And yeah, so that's kind of my my struggle with it. It's if I talk forever about it, it would take like days, because there's so much that I went through in school. Oh my gosh.
Right.
And like and everyone just learns differently, and thankfully I guess I could say my parents didn't like give up on me, kind of thing. They kept on, especially my mom, kept on trying to figure out how can I help my daughter get through school, even with all those, issues and stuff. And, but at the time I didn't know I was neurodivergent. I didn't know that was the word. All I knew is that like, I learned things differently from the other people in the class. And I have to do things differently, or have different accommodations to succeed. But it's only recently that I realized, oh, okay, neurodivergent. Okay, maybe I am actually on some kind of spectrum, and I did not know, kind of thing. I just knew that I hated math. Kind of.
Right. Me, I also learned about the term a few years ago. And when I started I think what I was coming across was adult neurodivergents sharing their experiences in the office or socializing, and taking note of like the difficulties that they were having. And I was like, oh, that sounds exactly like some of the stuff that would happen to me in like interactions. So when I dig deeper, and then there was also like, there's some like tests or other things you can research on to get a sense of like, where do you fall in the thing? So for mine comes up more in interactions and routines. So which is, some of it says it's as purgers or something, but like that's not a word, or that's not a term they use anymore, because like that's the name of a Nazi scientist. I'm like, why did you use that name in the first place? But okay.
Right.
But whatever. So, but it's still on the spectrum of like, one, routines are very important. And when it gets interrupted, it like, if I was a child, maybe I would get a little like anxious if it's being interrupted. But now I'm kind of like, I just shift out of that kind of thing. And then the bigger thing with interactions, I have difficulty like reading cues or reading the intentions of people, or reading like, oh, it's my turn to speak, or you're supposed to speak, or I can't, or the deal of like the small chit chat sort of thing. I feel very, either would get anxious or get very awkward and then sometimes then come across as if like I don't want to talk, or I don't have not that I don't have emotions, because my face is like a cartoon character. It's very expressive, but not as smooth with moving around the room or interacting with people. And before knowing this was a thing that actually, a lot of other people deal with, I before just thought like, oh, you're shy, you're supposed to go out more, or you're supposed to be more extroverted or get over it. Or so because I have such a vivid imagination, before I would like pretend to be characters in my mind in order to interact with other people, sort of thing. Because I used to do theater a little bit as a kid. So it'd be like, oh, okay, I'm playing a part because I'm going to go to an interview, or I'm playing a part because I'm going to this networking mixer. So I'll psych myself up to play the part, and then go and I practice the questions I need to ask people, and practice like all these things were in my head to practice, to just do what I figured everyone else just calmly naturally does, and you just show up and say hello to people and just start talking. Well, for me it was like, okay, I have question 1 and question 2, but I have to listen to the answer for the next question, and then now they didn't answer it though, so now I don't know what else to say. Oops, kind of thing. And then would get anxious if like I can tell that they were expecting something, but I don't know what it is because they haven't asked it. And then I'm just standing there and I'm like, did you want me to move? Or like, are we still talking? I don't know. So that is on that spectrum side, that is where I've experienced it most. And then I couldn't tell if like part of it also was like, for me on the education side, standardized exams was the big like challenge for me, where yes, I'm okay in the classroom, even though sometimes I felt like, in particular, the switch between, like for me, the Montessori type stuff was helpful for me because I liked being able to, like, I can go as far as I want to go. Like I'm not being micromanaged as much with what I'm learning. But they were more visual aids with the learning in that system. When I switched then out of that, going into like middle school, high school, and the rest, which is not Montessori anymore, it did take a while for me to like be able, all my classmates just know how to deal with what's on the paper by itself without using the props that Montessori has you using to figure out the formula or do the spelling and stuff. And me having to like, which again, with my imagination, I kept on like, I'm picturing it in my mind, the props that I need. But that takes up time, and the test is timed, or like remember they'll do like the mental math or something where you have to like do like 50 multiplication something and you have to like finish all of it. So it was not easy, but it was just a lot of like adapting I had to do. But even with that, none of that effort, it always felt like none of that effort showed when it was time to take the SAT or the ACT or the TAKS, because in Texas we had the TAKS in high school, or the LSAT and the GRE. Like it didn't matter how much effort I put into it. It was always a score that was not the score that we wanted. And there was never like an explanation for it. And it's like, but I can read, so I don't understand, but I understood the question. I thought I understood the question. I don't know. So that was a thing too for me. And then in addition, like my answering of questions like with essays and stuff, in particular, like in college and in grad school, I'd always take note that even though I would think I'm answering the question, but then the professor always like will insist of like, no, but you didn't answer the question the way I wanted you to answer it, or like it was too broad, or it's too like everything as opposed to the one thing they were asking for, but like I didn't see it that way. So the deal of like just constantly like seeing or interpreting things differently, and then but not understanding, like, but I don't get what you're asking for. Like I can't read what you're asking for, sort of thing. So that has been my experience. And the deal with the interactions, like I've gotten better of not needing to completely like play a theatrical part in order to like interact with humans. I still sometimes do have some questions memorized in the back of my mind, just in case kind of thing. As well as I've gotten better of not feeling as anxious. Like I'll do things of like, if I start feeling anxious, I can just step outside a little bit and breathe or whatever, and then go back inside and just chill. Or I don't have to worry so much if there is a lull or a silence or a pause. It's like, it's okay, I can fall back. I'm not like being graded on this or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's interesting what you said about the social cues, or if like speaking with people, because yeah, I think that's one of like the biggest uh things I think with the spectrum, because like by on our own, like we're fine, or people that understand it, it's fine. But for dealing with people that don't, it's always kind of like it's such a stress, because you have to, you kind of, yeah, like you said, like play a part, like you have to fit into a certain way for, I also find small like chit chat or small chat can be stressful. Even though I'm considered like an extrovert, that's another term, of loving to be around people, talking and everything. But I do get like anxiety, like especially if I have to go in and talk with people, or for interviews and things like that, where I'm really like sometimes I can really stress me out, and I'm just like I don't want to be around people because I don't know how to react, kind of thing. And like for me, so yeah, having like for friends and making friends and things like that, also sometimes in certain times in my life have been kind of difficult or like awkward, because I guess since I act differently sometimes, that can get in the way, I guess, of having certain like relationships and things like that with people. And then how sometimes I miss cues too, like someone does something and I like, I don't know if I'm sure I fully understood why they did what they did, kind of thing. So, and I think that that is just, and you want to be yourself. That's kind of, I think as you get older, you kind of just like, you know what, if you have a problem with the way I'm talking, then, that's fine. Because I have had, and people in the past too, be like, oh, like, why do you do that to me? Why are you like that, kind of thing? Or or I once had someone said that, like, you're kind of awkward, kind of thing, and like little like things like that. And I'm just like, I'm just being like myself, but okay, I'm just like vibing, like, what I mean? Just,
right.
But I think now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, it's okay if people are kind of like, I'm kind of weird or kind of awkward. That's not bad. That's what I'm like, it's not bad to be. It's just like you're just different, and you just like, talk about things differently. I know, like with details, sometimes like there's details that I'll bring up and talk about, and I'm like, maybe this isn't that important. Like maybe the details of this are important to me, but not to somebody else, kind of thing. So yeah, I think, and also another part of my I think neurodivergent is like distractions. Like, I have to be very like absorbed with something or interested in something, or else I get distracted very easily. I find that I get bored very easily, kind of thing. So doing something that's not really what I want to do, I'm just like, like this. Some people are good at, like, even if they're bored or even if they don't like it or hate it, they can still just do it. For me, it's like very difficult. I need to like really like want to do it, or I'm just like, okay, or I end up doing it slower, or I take different time, like, kind of thing, and then I'm like, oh, squirrel, like, and I know it's happening. It's not like I can't, like, I know, oh wait, no, squirrel, come back, no, come back, and I'm like, oh, like, kind of thing, like I'm not just like, like,
right.
I think that's also an important part too. And just learning as we get older, learning how to deal with that and deal with other people and be like, I'm just different, and it's just, and I will say with the pandemic, that's made it worse, I guess, or maybe not worse, but just like I'm even more kind of awkward and have anxiety with crowds and people, because because of the pandemic, we've been stuck inside all this time. And I'm like, why am I so anxious? Like, even for like friends that I go, and I, because I've been to like a couple of weddings this year, and like I find myself being like, why is this so awkward? I'm so anxious. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm just like, oh, this is awkward. And I'll just sit here and be like, I don't remember how to do chit chat and small talk. How do you do that again? But, but I think the main thing is just, just be yourself, and just, I think, you sit in the silence. Like, it's okay if it's like, awkwardness won't kill you. You just sit there, be awkward, and then eventually you'll figure out something to say. Yeah. So,
but I think is the interesting thing, not only like with both of our stories and what we've also been seeing about like how more because there are more neurodivergents now who are adults who are advocating for themselves and then advocating for other children who are neurodivergent,
Yes.
and how much, so much of it up till now or whatever was a lot of people having to just advocate for themselves and just figure out how they do things for themselves and having to just be comfortable with it all the time. But like from someone from the outside would be like, oh, but you have to do, it almost looks like, to me, reminds me of, the movie A Beautiful Mind. And when like the person went inside his thing, there's all this stuff all over the wall and everything. And everyone else looks at it like, dude, are you good? Well, he's like, no, can't you see how beautiful this is? And he can connect all the dots and stuff because his mind is like completely different from theirs. And I feel that's what, for people who are on the variety of the spectrum, that's what it is. It is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think how we focus our energy is like different. For me, I know when I was younger, I didn't know how to focus my energy, and certain things wouldn't like work out, kind of thing. Like I remember when I was younger, I tried to be in ballet, but because there wasn't enough movement and I was bored, I would end up like misbehaving in class. And then so after that, I was put into karate, which was a little bit better.
Yes.
And yeah. So, and now I look back at the time, I didn't understand why, like I was so like bothered because like for me it was like my you and like I have like other siblings, and like they were in ballet and I couldn't be in it, and so that really like stressed me out, and I was all crying and everything. So I was like, why can't I be in it, kind of thing, not realizing that it's because it's not my thing and that's not where I'm supposed to be, right? And now I'm like, oh, I understand now. But at the time I was like, like why, and then always having so much energy. Of course, I had so many imaginary friends. I had a very vivid imagination. I would make up all these stories. Like if you look back at my old notebooks, things like that, there's all these scribbles and drawings and things everywhere. Like my mind was like so like there was so much going on. And so that I think that's probably why sometimes I would like get stressed out, or I would misbehave, or like I would do things my parents don't understand, kind of thing, because I would have this like so much energy. And then whereas like now I know ways that kind of focus me and like calm me down, kind of thing. And certain like for one thing, I have a lot of different like hobbies, and I get really into my hobbies. They could, I mean, some of them could be considered obsessions, kind of thing.
Just a little bit.
Like, different, just a little, I go through things. Like I had my phase of like Nancy Drew, where I would read all of the books and play all of the games. I got like all of them, kind of thing. And then you had like this supernatural show. I was like all over it, kind of thing. And then there's anime, and then K-pop, and then BTS, and and then well, currently BTS is like, oh my god, like I'm a big fan of them. And just like there's different like hobbies or things that I'm interested in that really they can really consume my energy, and like I can focus on them for a long amount of time without getting distracted. Kind of thing. They can really, like get me, or even like before, like in school, I love to write like or poems, like to read like poetry or essays and things like that. Things that I really enjoy, where I can focus my energy and I'm calm and I can do kind of thing. And so for me, it's like I guess for me it's like I like things flexible, but I also need a certain type of structure. I think that's a big thing for people on the spectrum, where you need structure, you need somewhere to focus your energy. And I think also with like emotions, like sometimes I feel, I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I think sometimes I feel things deeper than people around me. In some ways, like I feel like other people are like sad, but I'm like sadder sometimes, like, or other people are happy, but I'm even happier. Like I feel like I feel things very, very deeply and acutely, and I really kind of go get into why do I feel this way, and what is this emotion, and what does this feel. Whereas I think other people are just like, like like I guess I can't live. It's hard for me to live on the surface kind of thing. Like really like feel everything. And I can have really, I mean, I guess it's good because then it gives me like, I think I can have a lot of empathy. Like even if you're a stranger or you lost someone, it's not, and I don't know, I didn't even meet the person. It can really affect me, and I can get really sad about it and really depressed and cry and all this stuff, and like I feel for people very deeply, kind of thing. And of course the main, like the I guess the main deal is just to find people that feel like that too. But and so sometimes like I think certain emotions are just like different. Like I just like it's almost I feel like maybe I have a different set of emotions. I don't know, but it's kind of like why am I like this like looks like it's bothering me more than other people, like you know. Um I think, and also I guess another thing back to a little bit about the relationships, that like group projects were always hard for me also.
Mm.
You know, if I didn't have the right set of people, or right, you know, then it was always like a disaster, and people were always like, either I would get angry with them, or they have a problem with me, or it's like some big issue because like they don't work like I work. And that's why I kind of prefer when there were group projects. I was always like, oh no, can I just do it by myself? Because it was always like I'm doing something wrong, or they're being annoying, or I have to take over and do everything because it's like easier kind of thing, or just like delegate to people, just do the, you know, kind of thing. And it was always kind of like it was always stressful because I'm like working with people and having to do some kind of project is just it's just hard all around kind of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so this just things like that. It was always like especially in school. Nowadays a little bit easier because I guess you have a bit more control over,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your life than because in school, like you have to school, you can't, you know, do anything else. But yeah, so that also yeah, and just the way I like things, or the way I can be very like detailed about things. And I really have to, because I know how my brain is sometimes, how it works or how it moves. I have to be very like detail oriented about things. Like when I'm working on something, I have to really double check everything and triple check everything, you know, and quadruple check everything to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that like I understood what I had to understand, and what I read made sense. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's just interesting, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. And I think that that is also the thing in terms of feeling like an outsider, or feeling
yeah,
so odd or so different or so weird. Like, why can't it be? It just seems it's easier for everyone else. Why can't it be
yeah,
easier for me? But then when you like you break it down, which I also resonate with in terms of like, yes, all the details are important. That's why we're here. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel so like we must get this completely the way it's supposed to be because it's supposed to be great. Like, why can't anybody else see that? Like that sort of thing. And then especially when you're in a group, because yeah, group projects for me too in school was a
oh my
nightmare.
god,
Always hated it. And
oh,
and I think that was because it was always a deal of like all the other everybody else in class just took it as, oh yeah, it's just something for a grade and you can just half-ass it and keep it moving. While
mhm.
I took it as like, no, this must be the masterpiece that it should be. Not, and it was never because it needs to be an A plus. It's just because that's how you interact with everything you're working on or everything you are focused on. Um, and being made to feel like that is either you're taken advantage of, it's like, oh, then we can dump on you then because obviously you're just going to do it all anyway, or you're made fun of like, oh my god, it's not even that big of a deal, oh my god, she's such a dork, and that kind of stuff too, which as an
Or we
adult
don't
is like,
understand each other. Yeah.
yes, well, as an adult is like, okay, bye, but as a kid that makes you feel like, but then what am I supposed to do because I have to sit with these same people for the whole semester or like the next 3 years or whatever. Like that's your whole life basically in your little bubble of a world in that time. I
Mhm.
think also the intense emotions also I think it can get misunderstood by people who are not on the spectrum like us, because
Yeah,
then it's also like, well, I don't see what the big is, or the response is always like, you're so sensitive, or I don't see what the big deal is, or I don't sort of deal, as opposed to just asking like, let's unpack that. Like, I see you're really passionate about this. Why? You know, like that sort of thing would be nice.
yeah, yeah,
And instead of like then, and maybe that's why we always end up, we are the people who have the most vivid imagination because it's in our imaginary world that those sorts of
yeah,
things are celebrated or recognized
yeah.
or we can
And
be
it makes
free like
sense. Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah.
and I can be anyone in my mind, like you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's only like one. There's only like one or two, or like I can count on my one hand. I think
Mm.
the awesome group projects or groups I've been in.
Yeah.
Like it's very rare. Like, only a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
people are like, wow, if anything, I'd be surprised if the group actually was smooth because I'm so used to
Mm.
people like being like annoying or like
Yes.
we're not seeing eye to eye on things. And just kind of yeah, and then also because of the heightened emotions, sometimes like I won't, there's certain things I don't share. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I have like, there's certain like I have like, certain friends and stuff. Like there's certain things I feel like I can't share fully with them because I feel like they're like, well, my emotions are all the way over here and I don't know if theirs, or then I don't want to like,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things, there's only like certain people, certain, people, the family I can share with, and like certain friends I can share, but I can't share with like everyone. Like,
Right.
I feel like not everyone would fully get like, do you
Mm-hmm.
know how deep these emotions go? Do you know how far down as the
Mm-hmm.
matrix the rabbit
Right.
hole goes? And not only just the feeling of the emotions, but the way I think about them and what they mean and what they elicit and what they like I really like, well, this is going off the topic a bit, but like I like reading books about like, like how to deal with what just kind of how to deal with the world around you. Like how do you, like I think about like when you get really angry or bothered or whatever about something, like how like what is the best way to deal with that emotion, or like when you feel like down or sad, like should you try to stop feeling that way or should you just let it be, or like how do you, what does that mean? And I get all into the
Mm-hmm.
psychological when like what do I do, whereas I guess maybe other people are like, okay, this sucks, and then they, I don't know, do something else. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm
Right.
not,
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's not like, like, no, I want to get into this. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is an emotion? Like, what I mean? Like, I need to research this. And
Yes.
I just feel like they're probably, this is fine, but I just feel like a lot of the other neurotypical people that maybe don't do
They
that
just
as
need the
much.
emoji and that's it sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. So for me, I'm just like, but what does this mean? Like, Um, but I think, like I said, the good thing about it is I think it makes us have very deep, like, like we will really care kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we will really care about, like, if you want someone that cares to all the way, like that, those are the type of people you want to be with because like they like will, we notice everything. We're aware of
Mm-hmm.
like everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like a blessing and a curse, I
You
think.
know, it is. It is. As long
Yeah.
as people actually
So
appreciate it. Because we also actually, because of the way our minds go, which this maybe we'll start going into like showing how it's illustrated in movies and stuff like that. But like the way our
yes,
minds go,
yes.
we actually are more efficient in the way we think because we really think
Mm.
outside of the box. So we connect the dots more
Yes,
rapidly
yeah.
because
Mm.
of where we're not coloring in the lines, or we're not thinking inside
Yeah,
a uniform situation that everybody else is
yeah.
thinking.
And
So
also, segue, literally, I can't color in the lines. Like, it's really hard for me to literally like
yes,
color in the lines.
yes,
No.
right,
Anyway,
exactly, exactly. That's why that would be. I don't know if anyone's done that project. It'll be interesting to take note of like any like a way out there, innovative company or movie or something. If one could find out, did the person who wrote this or invented this, were they neurodivergent? It'll be interesting to find out if
yes,
really the majority of them were, but then like of course the rest of the team was a different type of mind in order to get it to be a business or whatever it was kind of thing. That
yeah,
would be interesting
yeah,
to look at. But yeah, okay, so
yeah.
let's get into the movie. So
Yes.
let's start with how about you start with the K drama and then we'll go into the
Okay.
characters. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, there's this wonderful, awesome K drama that I think people should watch, whether they like K dramas or not. It's called I think it's called Extraordinary Attorney Woo. And basically, it's a K drama, it's like a Korean drama, and this girl is she's autistic, and she's autistic, but she's brilliant. And she becomes an attorney, like one of their, and it's a big deal because oh my gosh, an autistic attorney, wow. And so basically, the show just kind of does a very good job. Because remember on the last podcast talking about how K dramas are so intense and complex and everything.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, I think that this show does a very good job, and the actress that plays the part does a very good job of showing what it means to be autistic in, a world that like is not always the kindest to people who are autistic or different, or more obviously different kind of thing. And for her, for her neurodivergence, it's obvious she's autistic because of the way like she moves or the way that she like does certain things. Like she'll do a thing where she has to count to 3 before she enters a room,
Mm.
things like that. And she's really into like whales. Like she's obsessed with like whales, wants to talk about them like all the time. everything needs to be straight. She has to have like certain like, things done with her world to live in it. And in the show, it just goes over how people act to her kind of thing. Like some people are really weird, like they can't handle it. They're like, what is this autistic person doing?
Mm-hmm.
We see her meet other autistic people, but they're different from her. So it's different. We even see her dating, which is really like interesting, and how like thankfully the guy that she's with is very like patient and understanding. I mean, he really cares about her. So like it works out, but of course there's struggles because the way she communicates or the ways she does things, and the thing with her, she's very like self-aware. So she's like, I'm autistic, and this like it's kind of like, even if it's hard for me to show that I care, I do care kind of thing. Like this is like it's very like she understands it's hard for her to have her and do things like that. And the interesting thing with this show is that like some of the things she does, I'm not autistic, but some of the things that she does reminds me of myself, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I'm like, what? And I mean, I watched the show after I knew about neurodivergent and stuff.
Right.
So I was like, what the heck? Like, why didn't I know all this stuff before? Like, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. And in like, like she does things like, she like counts 3 times before entering a room. For me, I don't do that, but like I know that sometimes I like to double check stuff. Like if I lock the door, I sometimes need to check it 2 or 3 times to double check that I locked it, like things like that. And how she can't stop talking about whales. Like when I'm interested in something, this.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
When I'm into something, like before it was like the anime, supernatural, BTS, like I can talk about it forever, and I forget that, oh wait, other people might not be interested. Oh wait, other people have other things. Oh wait, and then like even in the show, there's a part where like her dad is like, or one of her friends is like, okay, you can talk about whales at this time, but at this time you need to talk about something else. Like you need to be like, give her a lot of time to remind her when to talk about. And I know that I can be like that too. And also the anxiety too, like not and saying like kind of like feeling like, oh, I'm kind of different, I'm kind of odd, so maybe I should do something else, or maybe this like I can't be with you or stuff like that. Also what she notices, like her empathy, like there's one character who like was kind of annoyed with her because they used to go to school together, and she remembers that like I don't think this is a spoiler. I'm like, okay, well, this
don't get too much. Don't
get too much. But basically, the autistic character notices things that other people didn't think they noticed. So it's kind of like, I see you, and I know you used to do this nice thing, and the other person's like, what? I didn't know you noticed that about me, kind of thing. And I'm like that too, where there's certain details, and I'm very aware of like how people do things for me or care about me, or like how invested people are in me, or like how much I'm a priority to people, like things like that I notice, like and maybe like other people might not see it or care, but I do, kind of thing. And then also the autistic character, like there's certain things that stress her out, and like if she doesn't do them in a certain way, or people mess up something, it freaks her out, and it makes it hard for her to like function, kind of thing. For me, I don't know if it makes it hard to function so much, but I do know that when I'm anxious or things stress me out, it makes it hard for me to like finish certain tasks, kind of thing. And I end up being like, oh, why isn't this working kind of thing? Or like if things are, when I was younger, things didn't work, like I would get really stressed and I would cry and be like, why can't I do this? Other people can do it. I can't figure it out. Whereas now I'm just like, well, that's just the way it is. Like sometimes like if things don't work out, it takes a long time. Like, you know what, I'll just take my time, and I'll be patient with myself, and finally I'll get it, kind of thing. So I don't think I gave too many spoilers of the
I don't think so, because I haven't watched it yet, and I don't feel like I know the whole story. So I think you're
okay, cool, awesome. I'm like, oh, let me not blah, 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 like, kind of thing. But it's really awesome because you can, I mean, in the attorney or law world, obviously, as like lawyers kind of are, I guess, known for like, doing some shady stuff, or like twisting, or like you have to do stuff to get ahead, and like any kind of job where you're like in the business world, and like CEOs, lawyers, everyone, it can be very cutthroat.
Yes.
And the main issue with this character, the autistic one, is that because she's autistic and she's very like honest. She's very honest. It's almost like she's too honest for her job,
Right.
almost. Like that's kind of, and like that obviously is difficult because we know that with lawyers, like if you're defending someone, like even if you know that the
They did
person
it.
is a liar, that's not the point. You're just supposed to prove their case regardless of your opinion. And if you're someone that wants to be honest and do the right thing, and you're like, but no, the other person is the right one, yeah, it makes it difficult. So, that also was kind of interesting. So anyway, those are a little bit of that show. I think people should watch it. I don't think that was, that was well, like I feel like if we do the podcast, we put like a note on it and be
Right.
like,
Yes.
spoiler.
Disclaimer. Yes.
Disclaimer. So, and then and then I guess you remember that movie, the
The
other one, the one
Accountant.
with Ben Affleck.
A bit.
Yeah.
Yes. And with that
Kind of
one, yes, the main character is
basically.
right. I guess, I mean, that movie's been out for a while, so I'm sorry if you haven't watched it yet. We might spoil it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the accountants, the main
Yeah.
character, they are autistic. He is autistic. He's also an accountant. And
Yes.
the way they portray him, he's very much into routine. Yes, he doesn't really socialize at all. Also doesn't really have facial expressions really, or different types of facial expressions, but he is brilliant at what he does. As in, like, he
Yes.
is the most reliable, brilliant accountant ever. If that's the one you want to audit your stuff or make sure you don't get audited, that's the one you call. And he will be completely zoned in. Like the scene where like the whole room is full of boxes of papers and he's just going through every single line and everything. People are like, you're not tired? What's going on? You don't need water? Da, 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 da. And he did all of it as if like his mind is a computer or something. And then the added thing about is that, well, technically speaking, the family he comes from, there's some, fighting, military, whatever stuff he has to get into. And he just happens to be a very efficient assassin. He just, wasn't doing that.
No big deal. I mean, whatever.
But then it came up and he's like, yeah, all of a sudden he has all these guns just in his house, but he just hasn't used them in a while because didn't need to. It's fine. And then again, still very efficient, no emotion, like the surface looking like there's no emotion. But obviously still a person who truly cares. And when you see the flashbacks of like him and his brother and what he cared for his brother when they were growing up, but it was obviously difficult because the brother was not autistic while he was, and this sort of thing. And so it showed, for me, it was like the first time in a while of a movie showing autism without it looking like it's some handicap, that the person is completely like an invalid, like they can't do anything themselves and there's such a burden and blah, blah, blah. Now, even though, yes, in the flashbacks, the mother like ran out on the family because she said it was too stressful to deal with a child like that. But to see the way that, which then goes into how like, well, the dad trained both of them almost as equals of like, you both will be able to deal with yourself. Like you need to be able to take care of yourselves and that sort of thing. And for him to then be this adult who completely takes care of himself, like you wouldn't know completely. Yeah, you wouldn't. The only thing you would take note of like, oh, he doesn't really want to have lunch with us, but that's it. Like, there's nothing else to claim. Like he needs to have extra time or anything in that way. And he also is a badass because he ends up doing the assassin type stuff later on in the movie. So it was really cool of like, yes, the story was its own story with some suspense and everything, but it was so cool to be able to have an autistic character in that story who wasn't like you're in a hospital and it's just someone's holding their hand and going around and that's it. It was really cool to be able to see them, to see it portrayed as like, no, you're a part of society. It's not the person doesn't need to be secluded off somewhere and like as if there's something wrong. But there's so much, when you see his personal life, there is so much effort that he has to do for his life to be the way it is. Like the way his house was set up, I have one fork, one knife, one plate. I put it in this exact same spot over and over again. Like all of this routine stuff, which I was like, I resonate with that too, because I kind of be doing that sometimes. I mean, not exactly, but I mean, that's how my kitchen be. This is true. But I think it was awesome because I think it gave it more of a human touch to that character, which we don't which I don't think I've seen in a movie in a while, which I really appreciated to see that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you make me now want to watch it again.
Right? It's been a while. True, it's been a while because it was good, and I love the writing where you didn't really know what was going on until later on, and then like didn't figure out who was fighting.
You're like, oh,
exactly.
Like, what?
Yes. No, it was cool. It was well done.
Yeah, and I liked how it was. I liked that. Yeah, it shows a different side. It shows there are different types that like autistic people are not all one person. Like everyone acts like, you know what I mean? Like people tend to think it's only one people. I'm like, no, they're just like neurotypical people. Their brains just work differently. That's all. They just see the world differently, and they're just very and then because of the way their brains work, they tend to be very brilliant or intelligent, very intelligent in different ways because of how their brains are, connects stuff like that. And so I think that that movie was great. I thought it was, because it was like, oh, you see, they, they're all just, you know what I mean? They're all just, living and doing their thing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they tend to be brilliant. They tend to be like, well, this isn't a movie, but I guess I don't know what, I think, what's it called? The other one is Elon Musk. I know everyone's
and he is on the spectrum, right?
Yes, I believe he's on the spectrum.
And is quite in the news these days, shaking up Twitter.
I know. Yeah, and I want to make sure I look up the proper term. I don't know if it's, I don't know which one I think he also is. Oh yeah, he has Asperger's.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, which is also he's autistic kind of thing. So, and we know he's like this huge big CEO, super smart, all this stuff, and and I think he talks about too how sometimes with the emotions and stuff, he needs to tell you. I think there's something that check. Please fact check me. I don't know. I think that what he has to tell people how he feels about stuff. It's like, I'm really happy because I have to, because then his face sometimes doesn't
share it, right?
And and also another show that I totally forgot about is It's Okay Not to Be Okay. Oh my God!
Yes! Oh my goodness! This is so true. Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's an autistic character in it too.
Yes, that's true. That one I've seen. We saw that one together, didn't we? Right?
Yes, we did.
Yes. No, that is also a very good one. Yeah.
Which also gives you a good idea of how autistic people can be, and the actors really, they obviously did their research because they really were able to show the complex and then I guess for him, for the autistic character, what was it painting was his thing. Painting is his and then
the thing that calms him and that he's brilliant at.
He's able to do. And I remember for him to him and the girl from Extraordinary Attorney Woo, they needed pictures of there'll be cards of different emotions and then a picture of it. So it'll show a face. So it's reminds them, okay, this is the face you make when you're sad. This is the face you make when you're, kind of thing.
Right.
And I think it did a good job of showing the struggles you can go through as an autistic person and the struggles that families can go through with autistic people, to get, how things are. And I don't know what else could we say about that. That's kind of
I think also it was also good for the way they portrayed it, because yes, for that character it was a deal of no, he can't, it may not be the best thing for him to be living by himself or completely being on his own due to the way his spectrum deal was, and the insight of him making the effort to try and learn. So with the facial expressions, it wasn't only he has to make, it's I'm trying to understand, why does your face look that way? Oh, is that what does, what I'm saying? He would do the deal of asking his brother, the other person, what does that face mean? Why are you making that face? Oh, that's the emotion. And then he would draw it. Yes. So being able to paint emotions, that was his way of learning and being able to illustrate how he feels, because you can't see it on his face, but he can paint it. Yeah. So, the deal of the way it's each of the way what we are brilliant at is how we are expressing our emotions, as opposed to everyone else is just through their face or through the inflection of their voice kind of thing. So that I thought was really beautiful. I really like the way they they showcase that without saying like this is what he's doing. It's like no, you're showing it throughout the entire show, so that by the end he was able to do an entire book, like an entire children's book with all the images and everything, you know? But then also due to him, like you then see how the spectrum is one where yes, everyone knows he has it, but there are other characters that are very close to him where it's like, I think you might be on the spectrum too. Maybe not all the way where he is, but you got something going on too. But like, why is your face looking like that? Like, what are you doing? Like, what happened to your mom? Like, what's going on? Like, you know, stuff that like, I don't think you're typical either. Okay. But, you know, but the deal of which I think was nice also to take note of like, yeah, there is, because it's such a spectrum, you'd be surprised how many more people possibly are on it and did not know, but are still struggling with it, and how they were able to teach each other through their experiences to deal with themselves, as well as how to continue nurturing each other, like they're nurturing their connections. So I thought that was beautiful. It was still a sad show though, but yeah. It was beautiful though.
But it was good. It was anyone. So yeah, everyone watch The Accountant. If you haven't, it's okay not to be okay. K-drama, Extraordinary Attorney Woo. That's it. That's your homework.
So what would you say in terms of what you like to focus on? What would you say that this thing that you either focus on or feel in your element that enables you to express yourself in the most comfortable way or the most authentic way?
Yeah. I guess the main thing is just like when I like to do something, like when I am not being like distracted and my energy is fully focused in something, and like I'm able to spend like time on it and like be focused like the whole time. Those things are the things that are awesome for me, because I know there's like because I know I get bored easily, and because I know that like if I'm not aligned with something or I'm not feeling it, I can be kind of like I don't want to do this. When I am really focused on something, I'm like, okay, all right, this is what I need to do. Like, you know, and I guess in some ways it makes it easier to have like know what I'm interested in, or to have like hobbies and stuff, because I know what makes me, you know, be like focused and things like that. So yeah, just like if I can focus the energy and I have the certain structure that I need, then awesome fruits can be bared. Is that the bared? we can bear these awesome fruits. I don't know what kind of metaphor I'm going to make, but yeah. So focusing the energy, and knowing what your limits are and what challenges you have, and you know, just doing things for yourself that make life easier for you, and like little tips and tricks that you use, like you know, like I know I always get lost when I drive, and so I know that sometimes maybe you should go to the location the day before, or maybe you should route it before, or maybe you should pay a bit more attention to the signs, or if you do get lost, take a breather and just, you know, go turn around and try again, you know, and not, you know, and just kind of be patient with yourself, I think is the biggest thing. Well, you know, I mean, with me, with my, like, because everyone's thing is, the way they deal with stuff is all different. Yeah. And before we end this, what about you? What are
I would say for me, it's with my imagination and creativity, with dancing, with painting, with writing stories, and like creating the outfit and the music and the video to go with the story. That realm, I feel I'm able to express my emotions or express my feelings more authentically. And then also like in-depth research and in-depth conversations, like going really deep in stuff that I've been like way down into the matrix of the rabbit hole about this topic. I can express myself more of like, did you know what happened in this year? And then this person did this and this person did that. And like, did you know we're like developing something? Like I'm all into that, of those like certain topics that I'm into. I think that is when I also get to express myself more, or end up sharing more comfortably or authentically too.
Yeah. And I think it makes it easier to relate to people, because then when I come across people who are having issues or have learning issues, or like, you know, I get them. Like I find I'm very patient with other people. Like if I see someone that's kind of not afraid to like go to people that are different and be like, hey, how are you? And let's talk and like, you know, kind of
Yes.
thing. And especially if I find people that are interested in the same things I'm interested in. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that kind of, I think that's kind of like, you know, helpful because then, and if we have more neurodivergent, like helping people becoming leaders and teachers, things like that, like people can have a much smoother time like in school because it's like, you're
Yes.
not weird. We just have to teach you in this different way. Kind of, okay. But yeah, I guess that's our neurodivergent talk and like
I think so. I think this was a
we
good
want to
and
hear
it's
from,
true.
we want to hear from you guys, like, you
Yes.
know, about this topic.
Yes, because there's so many other layers we can go into in this. I feel like this was like the introductory episode.
Part one.
Part one on neurodivergence, because it's true. We got to talk about education, entertainment,
Yes, yes,
technology,
so much. Oh my
relations,
God,
human
technology,
relations, plant relations, all of it.
grant relations.
You know, government relations, all of it, all of it. So that might be another part. So let us know. Let us know if you enjoyed the episode. Let us know you got any questions about neurodivergence. Are you a fellow neurodivergent mutant? Let us know. And maybe we'll continue the conversation in another episode. Yay. So thank y'all so much for listening. And we'll see you in the next time, in the next episode next time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.